Welcome to the Silent Stage Podcast. The Silent Stage Podcast is brought to you by Sweetwater, and our main goal here is to talk about all things digital gear when it comes to playing guitar. Today's guest is a self-taught musician, songwriter, producer, and mix engineer. Now, you've most definitely seen him on YouTube because he's one of the biggest YouTube channels around for guitar players. He can be heard playing with the famous Frog Leap Studios, his original material, and his latest project called Vower just released their EP earlier this month, and they are set to hit the road later this year. Please welcome to the stage, the one, the only, the fro, Rabea Massaad. We're going to be talking all things digital amp modeling, gear, touring, all of it. And you are a quite big poster boy for the Quad Cortex. So what I like to do here is I like to kind of go back to square one of your first rigs. You know, like everyone's always like, oh, well, you know, how'd you start playing guitar? Yeah, we're past that. Like, let's go back to what was your first like gigging rig? Like, walk us through your first amps, your first pedals, and kind of how you led up to wanting or needing, you know, Quad Cortex.
Okay, well, firstly, thank you for asking me to do this, and I'm happy to be on and having a chat and geeking out about stuff. So that's really cool. First gear that I gigged with was a Marshall MG DFX combo.
Oh boy!
Yeah, yeah. It was the 2x12 combo, and it had this little switch on it that like valve tone. Can't remember. It was like FDD switch or something. I always had that pushed in, and that was my first rig that I got. My parents got me a amp, and I received a guitar off my aunt for Christmas one year. So I got like the full rig one year at Christmas, and that was what I gigged for like quite a long time. I knew nothing about tone or amps, or I mean, clearly I had Marshall MG DFX, but that was like the thing that I used for so long. And then it wasn't until we started playing, so they were just like small club gigs or whatever with local gigs. And then when we started doing them more frequently, I needed, well, the guys in the band were like, you need a head and cap, can't just have a combo anymore. So I ended up with a AVT 150 head Marshall. Again, it's like the digital thing, and a 4x12 that I got off a friend. I still have that 412. It's an old 1960s lead 412, and it's sick, so I still have it. And it wasn't until, to be honest, I've always been tube amp guy. And like my friend had a single, it was a Mesa single rectifier amp that I was adamant that my rig sounded better. And then and it was louder, right? And this was 50 watts, and mine was like 150 watts, whatever it was. And we were in a rehearsal room, and I turned mine up like halfway and like blasting it out, and then he turned us up to like 1, and it was just. Then I realized, oh shit, I need a tube amp.
Yeah, so there was that like the spread. I feel like is like the big thing where it's like you're really feeling it, like your legs are like whoa, like something's happening.
I had never experienced something that powerful. Like it was just the all-encompassing sound of a tube amp going through a 412 that was like, I didn't know that was a thing. So I saved up, and I had a full-time job at the time, and I saved up, and the JVM had just launched. This is like 2007, maybe, something like that, I think. And so I saved up and I bought the JVM 410. And then my rig for ages was the JVM. I had a Boss DD6, a Boss DD7, and a Boss PH2. And that was the rig. And I just used that for like a long time until I met Rob Chapman, and he got me way more into the world of gear. And then, Strymon and stuff started coming out. So I grabbed the Timeline, I grabbed the Big Sky, the Mobius, and started building, and it started to grow. But like the modeling thing didn't come for years and years and years and years after that. Like I said, I've always played tubes, like did the Victory thing, always had a pedal board. It was much later on that I got introduced to modeling.
So Victory was before Quad Cortex.
Yeah, so Victory must be about 10 years old now, maybe longer. And I got involved the end of 2014 to design the Kraken with Martin. So that was cool because I was able to spec out an amp that I thought they wanted a metal amp specking. Just to be clear, it's not a signature amp or anything. They just wanted somebody to get involved in like a high gain metal orientated tube amp for Victory. So I got involved on that and spec that out, and that was cool because then it was kind of almost just in line with what I wanted. So one channel's JSM 900, one channel's a 5150. And
so at that time, were you like established as like a YouTuber, a player around town? Like, not. I'm just kind of wondering what made him say, "Hey, Bia, what can we do to make this great?" Like, were you working at the shop at that point? Were you gigging, doing YouTube, a little bit of everything?
Yeah. So I worked at Anderton's in the shop for, I think I did 3 shifts, and then I Lee called me. He's like, "I don't think this is for you, man. I think we'll get you in the video studio instead." So that was a very short-lived thing. But no, I was doing YouTube. I sort of started taking YouTube very seriously in like would have been 2013, something like that. So like, and I started doing it regularly. And yeah, I was gigging and stuff, and I had the YouTube channel, and I was working with Anderton's. I was doing all the audio for Rob and Lee's videos back in the day, and just helping out. So I think Lee, over that period of time, had seen that I was sort of able to dial in an amp and like knew a little bit about the high gain sound that wasn't just tons of gain and scooped mids or whatever back then. You know, it was like doing something a bit different, had more dynamics. Like I used to like using the volume pot so I could clean up instead of switching to a clean channel, you know, all that kind of thing. So I think he was just took a punt, really, decided for me to get involved on that. But that was all. I was doing YouTube around that time.
I'd be curious if you today met that kid. Would you be, and like, what would you say to him? Like when it comes to like dialing stuff in, like, do you think that you now, if you dialed in an amp, would you be like, "Oh, that's shit"? Or would you be like, "Oh yeah, that's actually pretty good"? What do you think?
I mean, I'd like to think that it hasn't changed drastically in the last sort of 8 to 10 years in terms of the type of tones that I go in for. I would just say that they're maybe more refined. I used to believe, or I used to like to think that if I had more output in my pickups, so I used to use super hot pickups, that I could dial back the amp to push the whole thing harder, and that gave a tone. But as I've grown as a like player and like the type of things I like, with less output pickups, you've got more scope to dial in more dynamics and stuff. Like I remember there was a turning point where I was just getting frustrated that my pickups were just so aggressive that I couldn't get the kind of sound that I wanted from the guitar. And I realized then that I need to like reevaluate how I'm doing it. So like I lowered the output of the pickups. When we designed the bare knuckle stuff, it was less output and it was more like dynamic range, all that kind of stuff. So I would say that would probably be my advice, is like just allow the guitar to breathe a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like everybody kind of around our age went through the same thing where we had to be hot pickups. And like, once you try the lower output stuff, like you said, like the dynamics just open up. It's a different world.
Yeah.
And now it's like, if I hear a high output pickup, I'm just like, I can't play it. Like the transient is just like so forward and there's just no butter to it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Having that air around the sound of the guitar. Like one of my favorite guitars to play is the 71 Les Paul, because it's just there's stock pickups in it and like they're microphonic, which is hilarious. But the cool thing with it is just they're obviously lower output and it just gives such an open, raw, lovely sound.
Yeah. So this here is a 72.
Okay.
So it's probably the same pickups. These are the logo tops that have Gibson embossed in them.
Oh, sick.
And so this is my 72 ES345, and there's something about them. Like there's no potting. This thing feeds back. Like a couple of gigs, one Halloween, I was Marty McFly.
Yeah.
So, and we play a couple of songs with more gain. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to play the 345 no matter what. Even if it's not right for the song, it's right for the show, because no one's going to want to see Marty McFly play a Les Paul. So yeah. I'm going to stick with the 345. and we multi-track every show. So my father-in-law is our producer and mixer, and he's having such a hard time. He's like, I don't know where the drums are coming from. So it was my guitar, because once I put gain on, they were so microphonic that you heard the whole drum kit in the guitar in the pickup. It was pretty funny, but like I definitely get how microphonic those early 70s Gibson pickups are, but under the right circumstances sound so good.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. So, but that would be my main advice to myself. It's like, chill out on the pickups, man. Like, let the guitar breathe a bit more and probably have more fun dialing in tones.
So that was your first stint with Victory, was right from the beginning, because are they local to you? Are they nearby? How far actually where they started?
So they're based in the southeast, and I'm sort of directly I'm like in the middle of the country. I'm in Brighton, so it's like directly south of London. They're over to the east. And yeah, obviously Lee's involvement with them as well. Like they're at Anderton, so there was this back and forth, stuff. So
were they always, or was that acquired? Like, did Lee and Anderton's acquire them, or were they always their brand?
No, I think so. It's not an Anderton's brand. No, it's just Lee was involved he's involved in the partnership and setting. He was one of the people to sort of. Don't know if he set it up with other partners in terms of funding or whatever. I don't really know the intricacies of it, but obviously he's a partner at Victory with some of the other people, and so in terms of like the kind of products that he's like one of the people that decides all that stuff. So when it came to getting me involved, I think it was his executive decision, so to speak. And
now you have a signature.
What, with Victory?
Yeah.
Well, that's the Kraken. So it's not a signature. It's it might be how it's perceived outwardly, but it's not. It was just a collaboration where I sort of, out of all the people that Victory knew, sort of had the best hand in working with higher gain products and product design. So the type of features that should be on the amp and all that kind of stuff. So that I got involved on that level. Outside of that, no, it's just one of the products in the range. So
cool. I always thought that it was actually your signature. Interesting.
I didn't want a signature amp. It wasn't that, because they offered that side of it, and I think signature amps are just being completely honest. I just think they're not very cool. Like signature guitars is one thing, and even then, like even with like the Ernie Ball stuff, like make it look as least signature as possible. It just should be a nice guitar, like whatever it is. Amps, I don't know. I think amps more so than guitars are pigeonholed tonally. It's like if you buy Legacy or whatever, you're just going to assume it just sounds like Steve Vai, irrespective of whatever else it's capable of, right?
Yeah, makes total sense.
Yeah, so with Victor, I was like, if I make a signature amp, everyone's just going to assume it does what, like the Tremonti amp, the MT15. You just go, oh, that's going to do Mark Tremonti. So yeah, I didn't want to do that. So
another funny thing about that too, like, do you feel like you have a sound, or do you feel like you always adjust your tone to what's needed?
I think I think I have a thing that I've been pushing for a long time in terms of the kind of tones I like, and I think it's a combination of the type of guitar tone you use and the type of playing you do. So like whether it's the heavier riffing side of stuff that's a bit outside of the sort of run-of-the-mill genty sound that people have maybe nowadays, or it's the more ambient chordy stuff that there are go-to chords that I always use, but there's it's that ambient tone on top of it that I like. So I don't know, it feels weird saying I have a sound on the guitar, but like,
right?
There's a thing I prefer to do on the guitar that I've done a lot for a long time. So maybe, yeah, people might suggest there is a sound there.
Yeah, I feel the same way about it too. Like, I don't know what my sound is. Like when some people like ask, oh, well, what's your sound? I don't know. I mean, I just play. Like, I love all gear. Like on my side here, I've got a whole rack of amps, and I've got all the modelers, and kind of my modeler quest for the ultimate tone. I obviously have all the modelers because I put out YouTube videos on the modelers, but ultimately I wanted to try them all and find out what I like gigging with best. And like I said, we multi-track rehearsal, we multi-track gigs, and like no matter what, I still sound the same. And it took me a really long time to kind of accept that, because I'm like, no, one should sound better. One thing should sound better than the next. And then after a while, it's like I'm listening to these and I'm like, I can't tell which is which, because it just sounds like I'm still the same person playing it, but I also don't identify with a specific sound. So I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I get that. I think as well, like when you're actually playing the gear, I know what you mean. You still sound like you. I think sometimes when you hear it recorded back, and if you're able to A/B with something else you've recorded with it, even though it sounds like you'll hear those intricacies a little bit more under the microscope. Like, yeah. I don't know, the difference between playing through a tube amp pedalboard rig or a modeler, you might hear, subtle differences. But, when you're in the room actually experiencing it, I don't think so as much.
Oh, yeah. In the room, I feel like everything is, you could go back and forth with things in the room until it just can do it forever.
Yeah.
So now you went from the Victory tube amps lived on until today.
Yeah.
Right. So that was kind of the end of your amp quest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you pick up any boutique or vintage things along the way? Like, do you gear hunt? Do you see I saw this up on, do you have Craigslist in the UK? Is that still Craigslist there?
No, I don't think so.
We have like Facebook Marketplace. In the US, we have what's called Craigslist. It's just a classifieds ad, like a for sale type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say, nowadays, definitely not as much. There were things that I wanted that I was able to acquire. Like when I wanted an original 5150, I managed to find a friend who was selling one. If I demo something that I fall in love with, that's usually where I'm trying to acquire it. So like the Friedman Twin Sister was an amplifier that I fell in love with and ended up purchasing one just because it did a thing that I liked. But like boutique wise, not so much. I mean, it's just whatever I come across that I really enjoy. Generally speaking, they're always too expensive. Like I just can't justify it. Like it's different with guitars and and with pedals. I mean, there's a million pedals out there. So it's just whatever you think works for you. But like amplifiers, boutique amps, sick, but always really expensive. Like I would love a Massaad. Is it the Mark V? The one they did, it's the one Neural did a suite on. That amp, I never really tried one. After messing with the plugin, realizing how diverse the amp is, I was like, I'd love to get my hands on a real one. So that'd be sick. If the plugin's anything to go by.
But then you look at the price and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, and
price and weight. I mean, it's crazy how heavy Mesas are too.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I don't miss as much as and I love about Victory is they make small heads that weigh like 8 kilos or whatever. It's really not a lot. So.
And do they also make a pedal board amp, like a small tube thing that goes on pedal boards?
No, so they do a pedal board amp that's got a preamp in it as well. But I believe in the future that's something that might be. So, because I work with the R&D team at Victory, so we we all meet up and design and talk about new product, and it's definitely come up a bunch. Is the idea of making a tube power amp for modelers,
kind of like the IRX, or is it already like the IRX and they're looking to take it maybe a step further to actually power a cabinet?
So we make a preamp like the IRX, but we now make it's 180 watts at 4-run Class D power section inside the box. It's a little box that sits on a pedal board, and then you have the different families of amps. So you've got a Kraken 1, 2-channel, you've got the Duchess, all the rest of it, So it powers a cab. It's got an effects loop, it's got XLR out, so you can record to your interface. It's got 2 notes technology inside, all that stuff.
So those the actual heads, or even the ones that go on a pedal board can do that?
Just the ones that go on a pedal board can do that.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I always thought that they were just like a tube preamp and that was kind of it. Maybe it had IRs. I didn't know it had 2 notes built into it also.
Yeah, so they originally started with the preamp and then they moved to the V4 amp, which is pretty much the same size, fits on a pedal board, but now it has a tube power section, tube preamp section, and then a Class D solid state power section for cab. So
where else do you go then? How do you take that to the next step?
Well, I
Are
think,
you allowed to say? What are you allowed to talk about?
no, I just think that considering how popular modeling's getting and is, and how many people use it, like just making a tube power amp to power a cab so that you can run your modeler into it and get that, because that's how I'm running my modelers now with the band is into the effects return. So front of house gets the XLR out with an IR block, and I split the signal before the IR block so that I can hit an effects return and get that relationship between the guitar and standing in front of the cab, getting that feedback and all that stuff, because just can't without.
So are you using the real amp front end at all?
That's the next step. These gigs came up so quick with the new band, and we were going to be using QC. We just made that rig work, but in the future, the idea is to preamp swap using an effects loop block, so you can slave the power section for a preamp in QC, and then swap back over to the preamp section of the amp.
Nice.
Yeah,
so is that going to be like a 4-cable method? Probably a whole bunch of fancy stuff.
Yeah,
I mean that's such a beauty that people also don't really recognize about the digital stuff too, is that you can run those type of hybrid rigs and have the absolute best of both worlds. And the kind of biggest criticism that modeling gets is the amp in the room, the speaker cabinet. I made a comment on Instagram that if the pants ain't flapping, the people ain't clapping.
That's great.
Like, it's also only guitar players that think that.
Yeah.
But it's good that, we're kind of moving into that now where it's going to be undeniable, the use of modeling, because now more companies are doing exactly what you're talking about, where you can incorporate it into the real speaker cabinet and really start blasting and moving some air if you want it. And if you don't, you don't need it. Like, I'm on a silent stage right now completely, which is why I named the podcast The Silent Stage. And I'm 100% on IEMs. So I don't even know what I would do with an actual amp behind me anymore, but I look forward to the day where hopefully I can keep my dialed in touring sounds and then also get the real proper feeling up on stage at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, with Frogleap, the sort of Frogleap Studios live band that I play in, that's silent stage. So it's just like QC XLR out. We're on IEMs and everything like that. So there's no opportunity. Sometimes I'll have the sound engineer like blast my guitar through the wedge at the front, even though I'm on IEMs, to try and simulate the same thing, get some of that feedback. But even in Vower, the new band, we're on IEMs, but having the cab on stage, I think just adds to the overall live sound. And again, for us, getting to stand in front of the cab, because it's all, like those moments where you just let it scream back at you. So it's kind of priceless in the moment.
Yeah, and when you're touring and stuff and playing a lot of different gigs, so many venues aren't adequately spread where there'll be no front fill.
Yeah.
So when you are, the bad part about having the silent stage is there's no sound coming from the front other than the drum kit.
Yeah.
So, front and center is supposed to be the best ticket in the house, but you're getting the absolute worst sound experience.
I always feel so sorry for the people that like get to the front and they're excited and you're like, I sound terrible there, dude. You need to be by the sound desk or something.
Yeah.
So,
it's almost like I think PA systems are going to start needing to evolve too, where they're going to start incorporating an actual front fill as a part of the PA set. Like when you buy a PA, it's like, yeah, you have the subs and the towers on the side, but then just something on the floor that's like maybe a little like 8x2, like a mini fly array rig that points upward, that can at least spread the vocals and the guitars, because otherwise it's a mess sound wise. And that's why a lot of people don't like the digital stuff.
Yeah, I can see that, and, I see stuff online and sort of that there's that whole not war, but like argument between digital and analog. And like, there is a place in the middle where I personally feel like I'm going to end up being in, just because you can't deny the flexibility of digital, but then again, you can't deny the experience and feel of the analog world. There's this, and I find there's such an easy way to blend the two. But I feel like, I don't know, just tires me out sometimes where you see the kind of comments people make about digital or the comments people make about analog. It's like stupid.
Yeah, I guess it's like politics. Whatever side you're on, if you're on the far end of either spectrum, then you're just a nut job, and you're you're so ignorant to what's happening. I made a post the other day, like an Instagram, like just like a stupid meme reel about, amp modeling versus the guys that say that digital sucks. And it's like, it's got like 200,000 views and like 1,000 comments. And it's just people just fist fighting. And I'm like, oh my God.
What
it's
have I
like
started?
yeah. The plot is so lost for the people that are unwilling to be open to either end.
Yeah.
Because now with their kids that have never played tube amps.
Yeah.
Which is crazy too. Like the new generation, like these kids didn't have the crappy modeling actual amps that we had when we were learning. Now they have plugins. They have a Pod Go. They have a Boss GT. Like they have all these affordable processors that they could just, I could just plug in. Why wouldn't I just play through headphones? It's such an odd, crazy. It's an odd space for us to relate to, right? Like it's because why, if you think about it, starting from scratch, why would I blast it through a speaker when I could just play it in my headphones?
Yeah.
And it's like,
I struggle with playing in headphones. The only time I play headphones is with IEMs on stage, and that's so far removed from playing at home or in rehearsals. Like, if I had to be on headphones the whole time, I think I'd really struggle. Like, I've gotten one thing that I did find interesting was how much more used to playing through monitors, like studio monitors.
Yeah.
Because like when obviously with the lockdown and COVID and all that stuff, like you're at home, you can't be cranking tube amps at home. So I just spent day in, day out playing guitar through my studio monitors. And it's interesting because when you go into the studio to track an album, 9 times out of 10, you're sat in the control room hearing the cab mic'd up through studio monitors. So I just kind of got really used to that. And I found it that, making content online, some people were kind of confused how that works and if you can enjoy it and stuff. And I actually find it really enjoyable.
Yeah, your ear develops in a different way. And I also found like one benefit of being 100% silent. I feel like I had to learn to coax sustain out of the guitar in a different way.
Yeah.
Like without having the vibration of the speaker, like kind of like helping. Because that's a real thing. I mean, the sound vibrates the strings and it actually increases the sustain. Like not having that for me at first was like, holy shit. Like, how am I going to play like this? Like the first year that we did this, I was like, oh man, I'm like, I can't get anything out of this. But then just over time, I don't know if it was technique. I started practicing unplugged. It's actually the guitar solo for All Right Now by Free. And I just played it unplugged. I wouldn't plug in when I played it. And I was like, I've got to get these notes bent high up in tune and vibrato the shit out of them. And it's got to sound good unplugged.
Yeah.
And I've got to get the sustain unplugged. And then that wound up translating so much better live. So I think I don't know if it's a technique or not, but it made me a better player. I feel like actually not having my amp with me.
Yeah, it probably was due to the like developing your articulation so that you can sound those notes way more clearly and efficiently without any amplification. Probably what it was down to, So as soon as you put back in, it's probably like, oh my God, sounds amazing.
Yeah. And now like if I do it through a real amp, it's like, holy shit. It's like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So while we're on bands, tell us what you've got doing project wise. So you're not just some guy on YouTube.
No, that's what we were saying. We aren't just YouTubers. My current band. So since just before lockdown, I was involved in Frog Leap Studios live band, which is, I don't know if you've heard of Frog Leap Studios, but it's a guy called Leo and he makes metal covers of pop songs. And he's like a really big YouTuber, like 5 million subs or whatever. It was crazy. But he started wanting to do it live. We became friends a few years before that. So I'm the lead guitar player for that. And that's really fun. We're on tour in September. And that I've been doing for quite a while now.
Are those originals?
No, that's
all
all
originals. They're all covers.
Yeah, that's all covers. But he does it in his own way. So he'll take a song, Lady Gaga song with Katy Perry or whatever, and he completely rearranges it to be heavy. And then he'll always add in the middle of the song, like it'll just go off on a tangent in his own vibe. Just goes off into like huge riffs or whatever else, and then comes back to the hook. So that's always fun to do because it's like the band is a group of friends that he pulled together, and so everyone just gets along, and it's just a great vibe. And the gigs are always crazy because what festivals realized is that if they book us after the headliner, like the deadliner slot, everyone's smashed, and it's like they just have the best time because they know all the songs.
Absolutely.
So we get these mad gigs, like we played Nova Rock a couple of years ago, and it was like main stage for like 40,000 people, and we're playing at 2 a.m. like bloody Bruno Mars and all this, and it's just such a random thing, but it's so much fun. So that's been the ongoing sort of gig that I've had since my band split up, my old band. But I have a new band now called Vower, that we got set up. We slowly started to put it together about since 2021, but really it's only been properly going for the last year. So at the end of last year, we got in recorded an EP, and then we've been just building it all up to then be able to release it. And we released the EP on the 8th of July, so like last week. And been playing gigs.
Go download it.
Yeah, if you want to hear it. Yeah.
If you're listening to this, then go download it.
Yeah. It's just kind of like alternative, heavy kind of rock. I wouldn't call it metal, and it's not really progressive in any way. It's just kind of chunky songs, heavy rock. It's fun. There's screaming in it and stuff. It's pretty aggressive in places, but I wouldn't call it metal per se. Either way, it's really fun. There's 2 guitarists in the band, and that's something I've not really been used to in original music. All my other bands, I've been just the one guitar player. Whereas this is cool because it's like one of my favorite bands ever is Carnival, which are an Australian band, and their interplay between both guitars are just so cool that it's a lot of that. It's like one of us will be doing all the chordal work while the other's doing the layering and textures, and then it just swaps, like just depending on, just naturally happens that way. So it's been really fun to do that. That's fresh out the gate. We just got back for some festivals over the weekend, or more festivals this summer. I'm super hyped about it. I'm really proud of it so far. So.
Cool. So are you guys mostly UK, or are you guys touring some of Europe? Are you coming over the States?
I would love to come to the States, but I don't see that happening this year. I mean, it's so expensive to get out there with visas and stuff. But we've got festivals in the UK and a little bit in Europe, and then probably the start of next year we'll do a tour in Europe as well. I would love to try and get us to the States. I just don't know how possible that is financially.
Well, that's why you've got to wiggle it around the NAMM show. Do the guys come out? Does your band come out to NAMM also?
Yeah, only the bass player Rory, because he used to do a bunch of stuff with like Andertons as well. But like I'm probably the only real gear nerd in the band, like full on gearhead that, from what I've done for the last 10 years. So I'm the only one that goes to NAMM, really. I think they'd like to go, but I'm the only one that has been every year since like 2013. But I was going to say, like, the NAMM show might not even be a thing like a year's time. Like, it was dead this year, wasn't it?
I mean, it wasn't as bad as previous years before COVID, but yeah. I mean, I still like to go. I mean, I prefer it small, to be honest, because like, I mean, I got to meet you this year, just kind of walking by one of the booths. Like, I feel like the way NAMM used to be, and kind of, I'm in the same boat where I'm the only real gear person in the group that hasn't missed a NAMM in a decade. And we used to bring 7 or 8 people in our band, and we would play like 10 or 15 shows at booths every day.
Wow.
And this was before I went digital too. So I would have like my pedal train in the flight case and a double gig bag. And we would just be like sprint from one place to another. It was such a, like, looking back, talk about talking to your previous self, like what an awful idea and waste of time or waste of effort. It wasn't a waste of time because we had a great time. We built so many great relationships that way, but NAMM was like dangerous. It was like, there were so many people. It was so crowded, like absolutely mobbed. We used to always play the headlining slot at the Hilton on Saturday.
Nice.
So every year we would play that like 10 o'clock slot, and the amount of people that they used to put in there was like, we would be on stage and be like, thank God I'm up here and not down there, because
it's brutal in Hilton.
Oh my God. It looked like if if there was like a mosh pit or something, like people would die. Like
Yeah.
if there was an emergency, nobody's leaving. The door's just going to get jammed. So having the lighter NAMs has been better for me as a content creator, at least, you know.
Yeah, it's fun. I like going because I get to catch up with people, meet people like yourself, and new friends and stuff. That's always fun. And obviously, now that I work with Ernie Ball and they're based in that part of the world, it's nice to give me an opportunity to go and see them in the flesh. Actually, like, you know, say hi rather than it being over email and FaceTime. But yeah, I think previous NAMs, I agree, when they're really hectic, and particularly because of doing what, you know, we do, which is stuff on YouTube and Instagram and all that, like, it's an opportunity for people to say hi, and like, if they're a fan of what you do, it can, and I mean, believe me when I say I'm so genuinely thankful to have people that are a fan of what I do. But like, by the third day, when you've been talking nonstop and like walking around and stuff, and you fit in that weird daylight lit warehouse or whatever, it's brutal. Where like, you like, I need to go to the bathroom, and it takes like 40 minutes to get there because of all the people who want to say hi, which is amazing. But yeah, like, I know what you mean by the smaller NAMs being a bit more chill. I just think they're just shrinking. So it would amaze me if it doesn't just shrink until it's the same.
Yeah. And NAM is actually the only place in the world where there's a line for the men's room.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that sucks.
The male to female ratio is still not there.
No, not at all. No.
But my main, of course, my main point there was like, if you can, I mean, if you go and people know you're going, you're going to get booked, you know?
Yeah.
So NAM would be a good opportunity, maybe, if you guys look into like just around the week, either a couple days before, a couple days after, you guys could hit like so many different venues up the coast or anything. I don't know how much time you have. I don't know if are you working at NAM, or are you just Rabea?
I've generally tried to at least do stuff for the brands that I work with, like demos or whatever, or be on the booth, like, because it's, you know, part of the fun of hanging out with those guys. Like, the brands that I work with, like Victory, they're all just great friends. So outside of like being there, like, you get to hang out with them and stuff, and we don't always get a chance to do that. But the last couple of years, I've kind of just gone as myself, you know what I mean? Like, just on my own.
I get it.
On my own vibe, and it's been fun. And years before, I'd do that so that I could, like, if I worked for Victory, say, or when I was with Chapman Guitars, if I worked on the booth, then at least like flights would be covered, or like the hotel accommodation would be covered and stuff like that. So it makes it a little bit more affordable to get there, because it's like, for us to get there, it's like, you know, that's part of like 1,500 quid, maybe two grand round trip to do it. So it's not
that's
cheap.
just the flights.
Yeah, and hotels are brutal out there.
Insane. So I just found going to NAM on my own. My wife is like super type A about everything. She's the singer. She's actually Jessica Lynn, the artist that I play for. So she always asks me like, well, what do you do at NAM? Like, what's your schedule? And I'm like, nothing. Like, I'm just going. And that's been awesome for me. Like, just having no plan, you know, like, obviously, like you said, stopping by the booths that you play at, maybe get booked for, you know, come play for 20 minutes. Yeah. And that's pretty much it, you know, a couple of those throughout the day, and the rest is just go and hang out. I've had more fun at NAM doing that than performing. Definitely. Like you said, like meeting people, like, it's still weird to me. I mean, you've been at this and at a much higher level than I have for a long time with YouTube. So like, it's still new to me that somebody would come up to me and be like, hey, I know who you are. So I'm like, oh, like, really?
It's never something that I expect to happen. Obviously, in a place like NAM, you're at the epicenter of the people that like to watch that stuff. So I guess you could argue that it's a little less of a surprise. But I totally know what you mean. Like, it's weird where people like, they come to you and talk to you as if they like know you personally, but you realize that part of doing the content creation is being yourself, talking about what you like online, and people feel like there's that common ground there. It's a weird experience for sure.
Yeah. And meeting you in person was cool to see that you are the same person on and off camera.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'm sure you've met some people in this space that are like, oh man, he's kind of a dick.
Yes, I mean, there are people like that, but I always just tried to, it's not even an effort. You're just you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's weird.
Yeah.
I feel like that spawns out of a place of maybe insecurity or something, why people act so different in one scenario, like being on camera to YouTube, than they do in real life, vice versa. For me, it's just like, I'm just doing the same thing that I would off camera, but
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I assume you don't script, right? Do you script videos?
No.
Exactly. So that's probably a big part of it too, is I don't script anything. I tell myself I'm going to have bullet points and shit. Like I'll be like, okay, I've got to make sure I say this. And then I don't even look at it. And I'm like, fuck, I forgot X, Y, and Z. And I have to either go back or just say whatever and deal with it.
Exactly the same. Well, that's where you get a natural flow for the video,
Yeah.
Like, it depends on the type of content though, like I've seen people that script stuff and it's super concise and super pro. I just can't do it.
No, I can't.
To turn it on and just riff with your mouth and see what happens.
Yeah. And I think people like that. Like, you're more quad cortex world, but a lot of my audience is from Helix, and they're like the feedback that I get that I actually accept and I'm happy to hear is it just feels like I'm hanging out with you in the room, like as if you were sitting across from me. And I'm like, okay, good. Because that's what I feel like I'm doing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a big thing. Like, I remember Rob was a great teacher for me in that world, because one of the first things he ever told me when getting into it was just pretend that you're sat in a room full of your mates, and that camera it's there to make you feel uncomfortable. Just imagine that you're just addressing your friends or a small group of people that are interested in what you have to say. And it was the way he sort of described it to me that made it just way easier to get over the whole, there's a camera there. If you get it wrong, it doesn't matter, because there's no one going to go, you messed that up. You just start again. It's fine.
Yeah. It's so cool too that you had or have Rob and Lee, and you've got such a good network of YouTubers all around you. That's so powerful.
It was, I stand by that. It's thanks to Rob that I even got into this career path, because we met totally by random, and he was convinced that I should do YouTube in some capacity, I guess because of my personality or whatever, or just when we were hanging out chatting, he's like, you do good on that. And so he really did give me the pointers and help me get going with that. And also introduce me to Andertons, introduce me to a few brands that I've worked with since, and really helped me in the starting periods. And it's funny nowadays, I don't really see very much of Rob or speak to him that much, just because he's doing his own thing out in Malta, and I don't have a lot of time to go up to Andertons. But whenever we meet up, it's just the same, it's always a good laugh. And I like going to Andertons and shooting videos still.
I'm in such a different part. I'm in New York, so I'm 45 minutes north of the city. So it's I'm not really near anybody like that. The closest would probably be Richie Castellano. I don't know if you ever see his stuff. He's the lead guitar player for Blue Oyster Cult, and he's John Anderson's music director and band leader and producer now. He was actually my first episode. He's one of my best friends, but he's in Staten Island, which is an hour and a half away. He's probably the closest YouTube relative that I have around here.
Yeah. That's the thing with the States. Everything's so spread out. If I get up to Andertons, it's 40 minutes in the car. It's not far at all. So that's fair. And I know what you mean. Sometimes it is nice to have people you can just bounce off. And sometimes, a lot of the time, I'm thinking about content with YouTube, and it would just be so much more fun if I had someone else just to jump in and do it with down here. But it's hard to find people that are really comfortable and you just go with it. As much as I would love to diversify the channel, how the YouTube algorithm works, where you're going to try this now, and you get really passionate about this particular piece of content, and it just tanks. It doesn't do well at all. And you realize, because the algorithm is designed to show people it's so tuned in. If I make a video, about heavy riffs, even though I don't try and pigeonhole myself as a metal, genty, modern, progressive player, that they always perform a million times better than if I made a video something on the other end of the spectrum. It's really strange.
Yeah. So it happens all the time. I hate when, we work with gear companies and you want to do like a really above and beyond demo for them, and it tanks, and you're like, oh shit, I like they're never going to call me again. But it's like, you've got to, and this is what I struggle with all the time. And I don't know if you relate or not, but like, how do I incorporate a new piece of gear into what I already do that people already watch me for X and Y? So when I'm asked to have Z on the channel, how do I put the Z with the X and Y? And so many times I've just gone to just do what the product does instead of have the product do what I do.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because there's so many times where you have to remind people that you're showing what the gear does. It doesn't mean that it's going into your rig, and it doesn't mean that it's something that you will necessarily use all the time, because, you know, the nature of that style of work is that brands are essentially wanting your platform as an advertisement campaign. That's why they come to you. So it's like, and I've totally trimmed it down now over the years. Like I really just want to work with brands that I'm friends with, that I've worked with for a long time. Like I turn down a lot of demo work these days. And actually I don't get as many offers because I made it clear a few years ago, that I'm sort of done doing just anything. My ethos with YouTube was always show the gear's strengths. If it's got stuff in it that's not ideal, mention it. But like, I'm not here to sell you on anything. I'm here to show people this piece of gear that got sent, its feature set, and if it can work with, if I can make it musical and enjoy the interaction I have between piece of gear and my playing. That was always my thing. But it's not always easy for people to. Some people just think you're a shill, you're just selling shit, or like, you know, you're not what's the word, being genuine about something because it's not on your pedal board. It's like, I think people just sometimes miss the point. So nowadays I work with brands that I know and like. That's it.
Yeah, it's a shame that the grumpy crowd is always so fast to comment.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's like you'll get 20,000 views on a video and 500 positive comments, and you get 2 comments that just like hit you right in the chest.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh man, I really screwed up. Or like, oh man, is it really like that? But it's like, you look past all of the good.
Yeah, you do.
For that grumpy bunch that's like such a small part of the audience. I learned a lot from Tim Pierce. I was in LA a couple weeks ago, and he invited me and my wife to his house to hang out. And he said he starts looking at YouTube like, this is my living room. And if you're sitting down in my living room, we're going to have a conversation. And he's like, if you disrespect that, it's just immediate hide user. He's like, and I don't lose anything because if somebody's commenting bullshit like that, they're not going to be a regular viewer. It's just how it is. Yeah. So, you know, I take them for what they are now. And it's like, if you comment something stupid, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not even giving a warning. I'm just, no thanks. And I get rid of it.
I only really feel like that if it's people that are out there to be hateful and nasty to others, or just to me, if it's just like, there's nothing constructive in it whatsoever. People can be blunt about their opinion on the video, but it's difference between that and just going out there to cause hate and be antagonistic. You know, that's different. But
I'm all for opinions. I love having discussions. Like if you disagree, like if somebody commented, hey, if you like this so much, why isn't it on your board? Okay, that's a conversation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's funny. But I still enjoy making content. It's just, I think for the last while now, the last couple of years, I've been kind of just floating through content creation and not really knowing what it is that I'm supposed to be doing now. I think I didn't want to be like a demo guy, but then I ended up being a demo guy. Even though I was touring and playing in bands, recording, releasing music, like the focus was that, because that's all that I was playing out. And then I sort of wanted to take a back seat on that because I stopped enjoying it. But then when that's all you've done for so long, you go, right, well, what do I do now? It's like, I don't know what works for the channel anymore. So it's one of those interesting times.
I get that. And I hate that we think that way. Like, what's good for the channel?
Yeah, I know.
Because we ask ourselves that all the time. But like at the end of the day, the answer should be just do what the hell you want.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's not always that simple. I want to do tour vlogs. You know, we do all these, we go to like Europe for like months at a time touring. and we do it on an independent level. We don't have budget for tour buses. We don't have label support. We're 100% on our own.
Mm.
So I feel like it's valuable to musicians to see kind of what goes on and how we do things, and how it's not like what you see on, you know, the documentaries and shit like that. So, but it takes so long to edit those.
Yeah.
Because I'm filming for an entire week, and then between traveling and playing shows, I don't have time to edit.
Yeah.
And those take so long to edit because you've got to think about a storyline to what you're doing and what makes sense to put in, what makes sense to not put in. You got to watch 8 hours of footage. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. So I like our whole last summer tour. I've got vlog footage filmed for the entire 2.5 months that we were gone. And I haven't edited one episode yet.
Yeah, fair play. Yeah, I do that similarly as well. I'll take the camera, I'll go, that's a great idea. I'm going to take the camera, I'm going to make a vlog. And then I just don't film anything because I'm just so wrapped up in everything else that's happening. So the last time I went to Japan a couple of months ago, that was the first time in a long time that I made a concerted effort to film some stuff, just to make a video, because it's fun. And it's not only for the fact you're making content, but it's something that I can watch back. I made a video years ago, going to NAMM and picking up my 71 Les Paul. And that was at Norm's Rare Guitars. And although that was a cool piece of content at the time for the channel, I sometimes watch it, guys, such a good trip. And it's like there forever on YouTube. So there's more than just making a piece of content, you know? So I think, you should edit those vlogs so you can look back at it and go, yeah, that was a sick call. Yeah.
I've already done I pulled up like the folder for the first episode, and I was like, let me just watch some and see what I could throw together. Like even just watching it, I'm like, oh, this was the first day that we got there. Oh, I remember this. Like you remember like the smells and like what it looked like from the other angles. And you're like, oh man, this was a good time. So I'm wondering what I'm going to think of it, having been like almost a year removed from it.
Yeah.
You know, it might make editing easier because I'm just like, boring.
Yeah. Probably.
So on your Japan trip, we've now deviated so far from digital amp modeling, but that's cool. That's what's supposed to be conversation here. You were in Japan for...
I was doing clinics with Neural DSP.
Which is your big thing is quad. You're like one of the biggest quad cortex users, right? So how did all of that start? Like what made you decide that you were going to go? Man, we went from like total bullshitting to now I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Because I don't want this to ever seem like an interview. So I'd rather be a conversation with a friend than anything. So what was it that brought you to quad cortex? How did you finally leap into, I'm going to stick with digital and I'm going to stick with this particular one? Did you try others? What have you gone through?
To nutshell it a bit, I suppose before Frog Leap, I hadn't tried any modeling, like or plugins or anything. The first modeler that I tried was the Helix, and maybe the Kemper. I can't remember if I had a Kemper before the Helix or what. The Kemper I always saw as this random extra thing that was like, I don't know. I think I had a Rat Kemper, and I always thought probably never gig this, but it's fun to have in the studio, to turn on and play a quick, immediate tone. And, you know, it's useful in a recording setup for some reason. But I never really considered it as something I would gig or tour because it couldn't do like stereo. And I'm big on the stereo amp rig. Anyway, so then I had the Helix because Frog Leap at the time was using Variacs with a Helix to do all the different tunings in the songs, because each section of the song changes tuning. You know, Leo just writes whatever he feels like at the time. So, you know, the verse might be in B standard, and then it might jump up to standard tuning for the chorus and blah, blah, blah. So we had
rest in peace, Variacs.
Yeah, oh yeah. So it was one of those.
What a genius piece of kit that they're just that they're just letting die.
I know it was. We couldn't have done that gig, that tour, or anything of that without that gear. That's what Leo realized, which is why I wanted to do it. So we ended up with the Shuriken Variacs, which was the kind of metal, like matte finish thing. Mm-hmm. That into the Line 6 Helix, and we design all our patches. And so that's the first foray into modeling that I had. But being completely honest, although I loved the technology, I couldn't stand the feel of the Variax Helix thing because of the latency. I think maybe because we were tuning as well, but like, and then you're on an ears as well. So you disconnected like 2 times, so it was weird. There was no relationship with the amp and the guitar and then you're on an ears and then there's the latency. So I kind of, for that gig, I was like, it's fine. It's for this gig. It's cool. I'll use it. And I got decent tones out of it, but as I say, from a lead playing perspective, which is my role in the band, I struggled with the lead because of the latency. So anyway, then with the plugins that started to come out with Neural, it's worth saying as well that 2 of my best friends work at Neural DSP. My friend Dan, who's the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, he's one of my closest friends that I've known for I met him at the same time as Rob because he works with Rob Chapman. So I've known him for since 2010, 2011. And it's been fun for us because we've both been trying to develop our careers, and he's ended up there and I've been doing this, and it's just nice. So he'd send me the plugins if you want to do a video, you'd feel free. And I tried the Nameless and I tried the NTS and stuff, and they were cool. But I didn't really play amps like that. Heavy metal, genty stuff wasn't really my thing. And B, I guess we're still thinking differently. Like, it's a plugin, it's on the computer. Like, I wouldn't record with this, maybe. I don't know. Like, I couldn't gig with it. So just kind of, here's the plugin, it's cool, it's whatever. And then the Nolly one came out, I think, and I started getting a bit more like, this is actually quite cool. Like, it feels good. It's 50 on 50. I know how that's supposed to sound and feel. So I think that was the first realization that they were getting the feel down. And I remember going to NAMM and they had the Nameless amp and the Nameless plugin, and they were switching between. And I remember hearing that, and Pancho at the time, I couldn't get over it. He was flicking between them, and I was like, that's crazy. Like, I couldn't tell the difference. In any case, that was like my introduction to modeling. And then the QC got announced, and I got to try it briefly at the show, but it was obviously under development at the time, and I wasn't really, in a position to sort of use it or anything. And then we hit lockdown, and they launched it around the same time, if I remember.
Yeah, because that NAMM 2020 was a month and a half before COVID.
Yeah. And so they announced it there, didn't they? And then lockdown happened, and they were releasing these plugins, and I was doing videos of those and having fun with them. And I think if it wasn't for the fact I was locked up at home, kind of thing, like all of us, using these products at home and trying to create music at home, like I started making demo tracks for them because it was something different. I couldn't go down the studio. And then the QC came out, and they sent me the pre-release version. And it was just, I think, to be honest, like, I don't have lots of experience with modelers. Like, I haven't ever tried an After Effects. I've never tried one. Like, I tried the Kemper. It was pretty good. But the Line 6, I feel like for me was slightly tarnished by the whole Variax experience, but it's a good unit. It's versatile. It does a lot of stuff. But I remember very specifically feeling like that there was a feel thing with the QC that I really liked. Felt like I was feeling the thump of a cabinet when I was digging in. Something about the algorithm or whatever it's called for their like feeling of an amp. It had an ampy thing to it, which I really liked. And it captured stuff. So in my head, I was like, well, this beats the Kemper for me because I can make captures of my favorite amps and make a stereo rig. So like, that's a +1 for me. And it's like using an iPad. Like, you can just tap it in what you want and build. And I found myself using it more and more. It was on my desk, and I'd be dialing stuff in. And I released a couple of EPs over lockdown and did the whole thing with QC because it was just so quick to go, like, I want that delay in front of the amp vibe. Well, so I just quickly tap it in. And as a producing side of things, own production, if you're producing of your music, it's so quick. The workflow was so appealing. So And then when I found out about the pitch block and realized I could use that for Frog Leap, I was immediately like, so I can use my own guitar, my own pickups, like with the sound and feel I know. But then on top of that, I can capture my Victory in Soldano at home, make a rig, and use it for the Frog Leap set. So I was completely sold at that point.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer at that point.
Yeah, like it just had the flexibility. It's light as hell, like, and the feel was all there. The latency was at an absolute minimum. Obviously, the lower you tune with the pitch block, the more latency comes in. And you know, it's funny. People talk about latency in modelers in general, and I guess they all have a latency. I mean, I'm not experienced enough to know. I didn't even know that, but I haven't even noticed there's latency with it. And even if there is, it doesn't bother me.
This is another particular commenter thing, because I've talked to, I've had 3 guests prior to you, and I think we've mentioned latency every time, because there'll always be the guy on YouTube that, well, what about the latency? What about the latency? What about the latency? It's like, I've never once in my life thought about latency or considered latency or made a decision on a product based on latency. Plug it in and try it. If it feels good, then leave it alone. Like, that's always kind of been my thing. There are guys that do like the latency tests on YouTube, but I don't know.
Doesn't bother me. I can't say I've ever cared. I mean, if it's noticeable, yes. Like in the Variac situation, it was too much. But if you put a regular guitar into the Helix, didn't have it. It was fun. Yeah. We used to play a couple of tracks. I'd just grab a normal guitar, not a Variac, and it was fine. So, but the reason that I use the QC mainly is because it has a great feel. The workflow's good. I can capture my own amps. It kind of does a bit of everything. And now that it's been out a couple of years, like they've got way more reverbs. I was a big stickler for reverb. When I first heard QC, I was still thinking I'll probably use my Big Sky in my timeline because the reverbs are all right, but it's not enough for me. Whereas now, the quality of the reverb delays in there is great. I'm more than happy with what's in there and knowing what's to come. With the plugin compatibility now, when my plugin arrives on there, having synth and my reverb and delays and stuff, I'm excited for its ever growing sort of portfolio of sounds, I guess, as you could say.
Yeah, it finally feels like they've gotten their stride at least, or at least they're kind of working their way out of that overpromise, undeliver era.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you can't ignore it at this point. It happened. It is what it is. But you could see that these guys are busting their asses on it, and we're finally getting that unit that it could be. We're getting to that point.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because obviously, as I said, some of my best friends work there. So having been so close to it the whole time, and you can see how hard that when I've been over to Finland to see the guys, when we were designing plugin, to see how many people are just hammering it all the time, try and deliver on different things. And it's that thing where like they released the product in a state that I think they firmly believe in, that it was giggable, usable, used for recording. Yeah, it was fairly stripped down in terms of its portfolio of reverb, delay, effect, all the rest of it, but it had enough in there that you could do a gig and record a session with it. And I think they probably just felt that was good enough to bring out. But I think at the same time, you're thinking, well, you're on Helix version 3 or whatever, and you're on like Kemper's, like however many iterations it had and all this stuff that people are going to directly compare it against. So, and that you can't control. So I know what you mean, though. There are people, and I'd be lying if I said I didn't think that it was one of those overpromised and delivered things. I just think they maybe bit off more than they could chew in the early stages. Knowing full well that they'd catch up, it's just taking a long time.
Yeah, and it's also hard because when you're working on it, and I'm kind of putting my developer hat on here, where, but it's going to do this, don't worry.
Yes.
But as a consumer, you don't see that. Like you said, your immediate comparison is to Axe-Fx is on like firmware 30. Helix is on like I said, it's like 3.7 now. So there have been complete Helix engine rebuilds. There's been new modeling software in the Fractal that's come out that like these units have a decade's worth or more of updates behind them. And it's a hard topic too, because like, is it fair to criticize Neural when the other units have just been out for longer? Should they have waited till they had as much as these units that are out a decade? Because then maybe the unit never would have happened. You know, if they waited another 5 years, like if they waited till 2024 to release Quad Cortex, now that it can do plugins, I wonder how different the initial reception and feedback would have been.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, they've certainly allowed the focus to be on them for a long time by the controversy or whatever, you know, the up and down of this whole thing. You know, I think underneath it all, though, the unit has been usable, giggable, tourable since day dot, you know, and that's something
Absolutely.
that I remember the biggest gig I ever did in my life, I did with that QC, and it hadn't been used at a festival that size. It was running on time code and all the rest of it. And it was like, they were as nervous as I was for like, is this thing going to do the job? And it totally performed, and that was in its early stages. That was just after lockdown. So we're talking like before they released some major updates. But knowing what's coming, like, you know, they keep talking about version 3, but even into the next year with all the other stuff that's able to get on there once they've got plugins dialed in and just some of the other stuff they can do, it's super exciting. And it's at a point for me now where within the bands, the amount of tone designing I can do, and as I say, when it's plugged into an effects return, it just feels great. There are so many of my personal pieces of gear in Quad Cortex, like the Kraken models, the Victor Squids are actually my Kraken amps that they have over in Finland currently. In the is it the Bender Fuzz and the Thunder Core, but it's called the Thunder Paw that's in there. Those are my personal pedals from home. So it's like kind of fun that's in there. But when I use it in my rig, like when I do the effects return thing with my Kraken model in here, it's like it just sounds and feels the same. Like, so I'm just happy with it. And yeah, there are loads of modelers that do all sorts of great stuff. And I'm sure if I try like an Axe Effects with a nicely dialed in patch, I probably think it was fantastic, whatever. But as far as I'm concerned, it feels good. If it's not broken, don't fix it. It's full, easy.
At the end of the day, that's how it should be. Does it get your job done? And if the answer is yes, that's it.
Yeah.
And I'll criticize Quad Cortex sometimes, be like, oh, I wish it had. Well, I'm not one of those people that says I wish it had more amp models. Meanwhile, I've been using the same Helix model for 7 years, the same model, one model. So just like that with Quad Cortex now, like I'm still capturing my real amps because I didn't even have amps before Quad Cortex. I had like 2 little combo amps that are on the floor over there. And that was like the only amps that I had. And since I got Quad Cortex, I was like, oh, now I should buy amps because I can now, I can capture these and I can sell capture packs and I can do all this stuff. And now I'm like back to option paralysis of having like my real amp sounds. And I'm like, oh, this is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And it's like, well, I think as well, it's just the fact that it's a bit of an all rounder that it captures and that it's easy to program and that it feels good and it sounds good and it's versatile and, tour worthy and stuff. There's a lot of other products that are out there that are great in a lot of ways, but how many pros are use it? Like, what do you see out there in the world of pro? You see Line 6, QC, Axe Effects, and maybe Kemper, although I feel like Kemper's dying out a little bit because of its limitations. But that's it. You don't see any of the others. You don't see the Tone X or the Boss GT1000 or, you don't really see that stuff.
Yeah, those are pretty much the only 3 or maybe 4 that I see also.
I'm glad that they got put into that position. And yeah, so it's cool to be able to support them as well from a friend perspective, like get to travel with my friends when we do these clinic runs. And it's like actually friends. It's not friends through the brand. It's like long-time life friends that we're doing that with as well. So it's nice. It's funny that you say I'm like a poster boy for the brand because I never see it that way. I'm just being the one to maybe it's because of the channel and whenever they release a new product, maybe the algorithm is perfectly dialed in. So when I write Neural DSP in the title, everyone watches it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's how it is. I mean,
yeah.
I didn't mean that as an offensive term. But
I know. It's just funny because
But it's like, well, when you think quad cortex now, you're synonymous with quad cortex because you're one of the biggest guys using it. I mean, with your reach from your channel and the bands you're playing in and stuff, like that's just it's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm happy to be, I suppose. 'Cause, I back it and I believe in it,
Yeah. Wave the flag.
Yeah. Yours, you're still line 6, right?
Yeah. So my current touring rig is an HX Stomp XL, which is the really small. It's not the smallest, but the second smallest.
Yeah.
And I'm just fastest on line 6.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much what it comes down to is what can I, like you said, workflow and stuff. What am I the fastest on? I think that's what it comes down to for me. And my ears are just tuned to it where I can dial it in like that with no thought.
Yeah.
I have quad cortex with me at all times though. This is always, I kind of always have it with me in either my suitcase, just, always kind of messing around with tones. So it is always with me. And if anything ever happens to the HX, then I would just slide it right into place. But I think it's got the potential to surpass all of the units. But there's one thing that, well, it's not one thing. I mean, I've made a few videos about quad cortex that they have fixed a lot of them, which I was like super happy about. Couple things that, I've said on my channel before that I'm like, man, they need to fix this. They need to fix that. And then it actually happened. And I was like, oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If I could open and close gig view with one button, that's all I want. I feel like if I could do that, I'd be so much more comfortable because to edit a pedal, and this is just something I do on gigs, like I touch stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I love when I could just sit there and just play, but I want mentally to know that if something goes wrong, that I could just go and fix it. So with Helix, they have touch capacitance switches. So I could just like the foot switch, I go like this for my distortion pedal and my distortion pedal pops up.
Right.
And I could just twist knobs and I'm done. With QC, I have to exit gig view by swiping. Then I have to find the pedal on the grid, tap it open, adjust the parameters, check mark, swipe up. So to make a basic adjustment, that's too many steps.
Yeah.
And so that's not that it's a fear of mine, but it's a concern of mine. If I'm ever in the heat of battle and I really need to fix something, having those few steps on the gig is something that kind of throws me, and just not that it doesn't make me want to use it, but it's like, okay, well with Helix, I could just do that and I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah. That's fair. I mean, they'll probably do some sort of feature where you can access gig view without having to press anything, but the pedal side of it, I'm not sure. It's really interesting though. Like, and I've seen your comment about the whole lanes thing. Like, you can't continue into lane 2, and as far as I'm aware with that, the main reason is because of the split CPU. Because lanes 1 and 2 is like 50% of the CPU, and lanes 3 and 4 are the other 50%. So they do that.
But so what? So then I'll use one CPU, because the main reason for that is because I run both mine and my wife's electric rigs. So the beauty of the modeling stuff now is that she's a front person. She doesn't want it. Well, it's more, I kind of decided this for us, that you don't have to worry about stepping on pedals. I got it. You go perform, worry about the crowd, and I'll do the foot switching for you. So for me, controlling 2 rigs, I want lanes 1 and 2 for me, and I want lanes 2, 3 and 4 for her.
Right.
And that's kind of how my brain has always worked, or how a lot of guys use the Helix stuff, is the first 2 paths are your guitar sound, and then the second 3 and 4 are your mixing process, your post chain.
Yeah.
Where there's your EQs, your compression, and like your kind of studio rig is on the back end, and your actual playing rig is at the top. So just mindset wise, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, no, that makes sense too. There are workarounds, but I know what you mean. If you could just have it continue, I get that.
Yeah, I've done it a bunch of ways where like I send lane 1 to lane 4, and then I say lane 2 to lane 3. But then I'm like, now my rig is the top and bottom, and then hers is the middle 2. I've tried working around it. I mean, I could throw a patch cable in from output and set it to like the effects send 1 and then effects return on the lane 2, but I shouldn't have to do that. It's digital. I should have the option if I want it.
Yeah.
Is how I feel. I mean, that's the beauty and the curse, I guess, of the digital stuff, is that if you can do it, you should be able to, like, if that's kind of my mentality, is if anybody wants to be able to use it, they should be able to use it how they want.
Functionality for all.
Yeah. These are pretty weak criticisms though, technically, like, this is not, I know I'm kind of like suddenly like passionate and adamant, but like you said, it's so giggable. It's so workable. It is one of the most pro units out there. It's just now that we're so spoiled in this generation of modelers, it's like the demand is so high, but realistically, I'm just first world problem complaining about nonsense. So I fully acknowledge that.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. We are spoiled in every sense of the word when it comes to gear. It's both awful and awesome because there's an option for everything, but at the same time, it's because of that we all start to compare and draw comparisons. And I don't know. I just think, and I'm still kind of in that mindset of just like make the most of what I have. I don't really, but even though I've demoed gear for the last 10 years or whatever, and I have a lot of that gear that I've demoed, I still have in my studio, I still end up using roughly the same collection of what I have. Like aside from, moving through to like modeling, like with the QC, I'm still using the same Victory amps, the same Strongman pedals, gig rig, same fuzzes. Like I just stick to what I know, what I like. And with QC, it's probably going to be a similar thing. It works. It does its job. I don't think I'm going to jump ship between lots of different products. And same with my plugin, like that plugin designed obviously specifically for my kind of tones and stuff, but it's the only one I load up now because I just like to stay within the things I know work for me, I suppose, irrespective of all the option we have out there.
And that's probably why I still am so much more comfortable sticking with Helix, because I've had it for 7 years.
Yeah.
I've had QC for 4 years, but I had already had 3 years of touring under my belt with Helix, and then lockdown happened. So I never got to consistently gig the Quad Cortex for it to prove itself. By the time everything opened up, my gigs were all important to where I had to, this has got to be dialed in.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't any of like, the local cover band gigs where I could take it. And if something goes wrong, I could just take a second to fix it. There's no pressure, kind of all of my gigs have been a little bit more high pressure since lockdown ended. So it's been hard for me to put it through its paces in a way that I feel like I need it to. Oh man, that was I don't want to, I'm not complaining too much. I'm just complaining a little bit, very adamantly.
All good.
So,
oh wow.
Before we end up here, I want you to also plug your signature from Ernie Ball, because I listed this as one of my highlights for NAMM this year. I had watched one of your demos. This is before we even met. And me and my buddy Johnny were walking by kind of looking at it. And I think the way you said it before was perfect, that it's a guitar at the end of the day. Like, it's a signature guitar, but it's a guitar that anybody would pick up and be like, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that, man. I really do. Well, I have this one here. That wasn't planned, but it's just,
I just saw the headstock.
Yeah. So this one, it's good in a sense that it's sold out, but it's bad if you really want this one and you can't get it now because they only made 30 of these. But this is the guitar. And like I say, it was specifically designed not to be flashy signature guitar. It's just, it looks like a Music Man Sabre. It's just the only thing that makes it signature is that I have my little thing there, my little symbol. But I love this guitar. It's kind of just refined to the point that I felt the Sabre should have been when it first came out, if you know what I mean. Like, it has the original Sabre has this huge heel, so we recessed the hell out of it. It's got a recessed lower horn. It's got an arm carved. I really struggle with guitars for gigging purposes that don't have carve, like that. If it's a hard edge, I really struggle.
So you're not a telly guy.
I like tellies, but I think for gigging, like particularly because I play heavier music and I sort of really throw myself around, my forearm starts to get a bit tired because there's constantly a hard edge pushed against my forearm. Whereas with this, it's nice and comfortable. It's also probably one of the only Music Man guitars with a chunky neck, and it's not crazy chunky, but it's chunkier than most of their guitars.
Yeah, it felt like the perfect Les Paul neck.
Yeah, so it's based off the 58 Les Paul carve, and we modified it.
Nice. And is it roasted maple?
Yeah, that's roasted flamed, and then the other color is roasted bird's eye.
Nice.
I mean, it goes without saying that it's insane that Ernie Ball, Music Man, wanted to work with me on a guitar, and anyone that knows about Ernie Ball Music Man knows the quality of their instruments are just fantastic. Like, I haven't played a bad Music Man guitar before, even working with them, and these just come through and they're just sick. I mean, the build quality is great, and it's really nice having my bare knuckles in there as well. That was a point of contention originally.
Yeah,
because they're expensive, aftermarket as it is. So getting them OEM to go in the guitar was going to bump the price up. And the other thing, you could, like the thing with doing signature gear and like guitars and stuff like that is like, if you keep the price down, it's more affordable, more people will buy it and all the rest of it, and you earn more money, whatever. With this, after Chapman, I just wanted a guitar that I could rely on. I don't care about the financial gain of it or anything like that. For me, it was just like, if the guitar's solid, I'm inspired to play it, and I love playing it, and it's like reliable and all the rest of it. That's the main thing. If it costs a shit ton of money, then that's just the way it is. And with Ernie Ball, they don't mess around. Their guitars are expensive.
Yeah, you also don't want to put your name on something that's sacrificing.
No, and like, no disrespect to Chapman, I loved my guitars with them, but there were quality issues, with some and not others. Because you can't control that kind of thing, the way that model worked. And the ones I had were great, but, I get messages from a lot of people saying, this is this and this and that and stuff, and you feel bad, Yeah. I'm sure for them they felt bad, and this is not a slight on Chapman because I love them, like they're awesome people and close friends. But I figured if I was going to ever do that again, after making the decision to just go out, just to move away from any brand, if I was ever going to go back into working with the brand again, I'd want to know the guitars were just going to be sick, So
did you meet them at NAMM, or they just cold call you one day?
No, it was Tosin Abassi that I was chatting with. I'd made the decision to leave Chapman, and then following that, I was chatting with Tosin, and he mentioned that Brian Ball, I'd come up, they were at dinner, and Brian Ball or Tosin had brought me up in conversation, one of the two, which is crazy in itself. Brian had said, yeah, I love what he does, love his music and his YouTube channel and all the rest of it. It'd be cool to talk to him, kind of vibe. And Tosin said, you should go introduce yourself, like, why not? So I did, and started chatting with Brian on Instagram in the DMs. He's such a dude, like he's such a lovely guy, and like got on a personal level real quick, like nice to chat and get to know each other, and then it just kind of evolved from there, really. So
it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, supernatural relationship there, and it's great. Feel very, very lucky. And the guitar's done really well. Like I said, that model sold out, and the other one is back ordered in most places now. So it's good. I feel like there's a confidence with working with a brand like Music Man for people, irrespective of the artist. You buy a Music Man, it's sick. It's like you buy a PRS Custom 24, it's going to be sick. You buy like a Nags, it's going to be sick. There's so many guitar brands that have that baseline quality, So
yeah, congrats on that, man. That's awesome. And it's a cool story.
Yeah, thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you like the guitar.
Yeah, it's killer. That was one of the first things I checked out, because they're one of the earlier booths when you walk in. When we get to like Guitar World, they were like that it's a primo spot that they always have. So It was one of the first things I saw.
Yeah, that blew my mind with the whole fairy wall. Wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
So anything else you want to mention before we sign off? Because
no, I guess just I feel grateful to be on the podcast and get to hang out and chat. And if anyone has or will check out my music or my pages, then thank you. Just fun to be in this world doing this kind of crazy stuff that we call a career, which is
and I'll put all your links and stuff in the description or the show notes, I guess, depending on where you're watching this, description, title card, whatever it is on if you're listening to this on a podcast or watching it on YouTube. All of Rabea's links to the music will be in whatever box is below, however you're hearing it.
Thanks, man.
All right, man. Thank you so much for being a part of this. And hope you guys enjoyed it. And we'll see you in the next episode.